أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers in Islam and those interested in Islam, but unfortunately here a distorted version, misinformation, misinterpretation of the message whose origin is in the Torah. I received a write-up, a fatwa from Canada or Texas, written by one Dr. Nadir Khan, a neuroradiologist, on the important or misused or distorted meaning of Ikhtilāf, differences of opinion and or disagreement. It was forwarded by Al-Yaqeen Institute. Al-Yaqeen is a very, very important and significant word pointing to reality education, its practical evidences, and the reward in the hereafter. Ilm al-Yaqeen, Ayn al-Yaqeen, and Haqq al-Yaqeen. I read the, 38 pages, 19,000 words, and he quoted Sheikh Salman Auda, his book كيف نختلف. This is the book. I bought it 2015 in Dar es Salaam, UK. I think about £5.60. Saudi Riyals 15, which is I think around £5.60. I bought two of them. There is one Al-Imma. I read the book, 180 pages. It was after I read this book that I resolved to write a rejoinder, because if you read any presentation on Ikhtilāf, it's not clear cut. It's not protecting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sunnah. So I decided to write, having had experience in one of the Dar es Salaam bookshops in Egypt, where a bookseller engaged me in the same thing, Ikhtilāf, that there is no Ikhtilāf in Tawheed, but there is Ikhtilāf in the furu'. He said branches. Small bookseller, shopkeeper, I said there is no Ikhtilāf, my brother. Kept on. Well, what can I do in Arab? Although very, very young, and there was some education. Now, if you read this book carefully, truly speaking, there is nowhere, well, there is the usual presentation of how you write in Arabic. It's very difficult indeed. One may write on the negative side So it presents as if what he is saying is supporting the negative aspect of it. You find very few writing on the positive side, especially translated in English language. That's the problem of Western scholars, because they write more than anybody else. I think they write more than Africans. I don't know how many, but I think I have written 11 books, all on the Sunnah, on what you do to enter paradise. So I wrote my book 2016, 3 years before Dr. Nadir Khan wrote his own book. Why didn't he buy my book to read? But he bought Salman Auda's book to read. Because Salman Auda is an Arab and is regarded as an authority. Well, I followed Salman Auda for a very long time before the break of the Syrian war. I have my own reservations about his own understanding. But as I said, one has to be very careful in reading Arabic texts because of the elasticity of Arabic language and the style of Kalam Arab. In my book, which is just $10, sorry, £9 sterling, £10 sterling, I don't think across the spectrum of the Muslim intellectuality, they could afford £10 sterling to read it. This is because most Muslims have already made up their mind. Well, that is not the case in Islam. In Islam, you should make up your mind by the time you are above 55 years of age. That means you have read extensively. But we don't even read. £10 sterling, around $13. You can't afford that. But you can afford thousands of dollars to buy a cell phone. Watch whatever you want to watch. What value is it even here in this world? It doesn't make you richer. But what happened the hereafter? And one of the rules and the guidelines of scholarship in Islam is you must read extensively. You must know what one says, what the other says, according to what is available to him from his own wealth. You must be wealthy to understand Islam. You must have the opportunity. So the layman that is virtually insulted, looked impoverished, is no better than the billionaires in Islam, because nobody reads. And they were always accusing the layman who could afford more than £10 sterling, $13 to buy a cell phone. He can't afford anything to buy an Islamic book. I am not saying, truly speaking, there is encouragement in reading Islamic books in English language, because it is nothing but regurgitation, taqlid. But Arabic is stimulating. In my book, I defined what is Ikhtilāf from 32 verses of the Holy Qur'ān, 37 mentioning, 24 times in Mecca and 13 times in Medina. The word Khalafa and its derivatives is mentioned 37 times in the Holy Qur'an. I am not interested on Meccan revelations, because definitely that was the seat of disagreement. So why am I interested in that? While I believe in Allah, I cannot describe. I have never seen him. I don't. He's just as he described himself, I will describe him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not give any further details. He left it for our own speculation, nadariya. But if we march to Medina 13 times, you find, according not to the wordings or to the word, but according to the Sunnah. You see, Medina is the place of Sunnah, not a place of anything but obedience. So, if we go back to Mecca, that is Iradatul Kawniyya Dini, you find 7 examples of disagreement. And between Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the young followers impoverished only 4 times. Definitely there was disagreement between for 13 years. As I said, I'm not interested in the word used in Mecca because it is Tawheed. They are disagreeing on Tawheed and the Risala. So why should I even understand that, read that? I should run away from it. Now, if we migrate to Medina for 10 years, that is Iradatul Shar'i Dini. Now, if there is going to be an agreement in those 10 years, which class of people? Must be the Levies. Kainuka, Nadir, and Qurayza. And it proved to be so. Especially after the Battle of Badr. But in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there were 17 incidences. But we must distinguish between Ikhtilāf, Tanazu'i, and Tafarraq. We must distinguish between them. Ikhtilāf in those 17 punishment from Battle of Uhud up to the conquest of Mecca. There were 5 nada'as in his time, all explained in my book. In the time of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, in the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, there were 10 in the first 3 days before the burial of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But after the burial of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there was only one incident on the question of the leadership of Osama bin Zayd to lead the military expedition to Mu'tah as arranged by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nobody objected it in his lifetime. But they did not object it until they left Medina. I think they said for a distance of how many miles? Then they objected, requesting Sayyidina Abu Bakr please to change the leadership to a more senior Ṣaḥāba. But he refused to, that it's not in his own position status, faith, and understanding of what is Risala to change the command instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They didn't know the purpose of that expedition was for them to allow, to help Osama see the grave of his father, Zayd, killed in the Battle of Mu'tah. That was the purpose of the expedition, but not military engagement. Now, I will ask you, if Osama or Zayd died in Medina, who is most fit to place him in the grave? His son. So that is the purpose. The son should lead those who are going to pray or visit his father, not anybody else. So, besides that, if there are any disagreement, I don't know. In the time of Umar ibn Khattab, there were 12 incidences. Usman ibn Affan, 4. Ali ibn Abi Talib, 2. So, if we understand what it is to be a believer and a Muslim, and to obey Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were only how many? 28 disagreements in a period of 34 years. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminded us? If you want to enjoy, we have 3 stages of enjoyment. If you live according to the examples of the first 34 years, or 35 years after the Hijrah, it is exactly as my time and the time of the 4 rightly guided leaders. There won't be any difference. Protection, victory, prosperity, and love. But if you live by the example of the 36th year, again, disagreement, insult, arrogance, riffraffing, punishment, hardship, you will also enjoy in the 37th year. So, if there were only 28 disagreements, why are they being propelled today? Is that there is disagreement while there was settlement? What is the justification? How do we think? How do we transmit? How are we reflecting Islam to those on the fence? Please, those on the fence should listen at me, or should listen to me, and let them buy my books in order to understand what Islam is in its true perspective, form, status. So today, to keep on writing that there are differences in Islam is a disgrace. There is no mountain of evidence of our insincerity, misunderstanding, misinformation, arrogance, other than that. So, where is the place of differences when there is supposed to be a sole authority, when you are supposed to obey? Then what of the nature of the Arabic language? There is a difference between presentation of Medina, Mecca, Hijaz Arabs. There's different presentation between Kufa, Damascus, and the Basra students. But if we respect the source, we should listen to the translation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his explanations only in Medina. And that if we are disagreeing with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we are saying that what has never happened has happened. Because there is nothing like disagreement between him and the Jews. Kainuka, Nadir, and Qurayza, but only disobedience. Disobedience. They disobeyed him. They were the people with the knowledge, but they refused to actually come out and say, yes, what you are doing, or what you are saying, the way you are practicing it is actually in the Torah. But it is now made simpler and refined for perfection. That is their mistake. Not that, you see, it is the same thing. Most of our scholars are arrogant. They want a position like the Jews. In Medina, wanted a position of responsibility and the governance. They want to be heard and nobody else. That is the position of our scholars today. Tribal sentiments. Because it's not on geopolitical, no, it's on tribal. If you go, you are either an Arab, you are a Pakistani, you are an Indian, you are Southeast Asia, you are a Nigerian. Wherever the Muslims are, they are divided, are warning against the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is the difference. So if you say that there are disagreement, yes, it's true. We are living in the examples of the life of the children of Israel in Medina, but not the Ṣaḥābas. And I keep on challenging. Show me an instance where two Ṣaḥābas disagreed and they never come to conclusion of what is right, what is wrong. I read something, I don't know, maybe it is in Sharh Mughni Muhtaj, where Abu Huraira and Anas ibn Malik, I think Abu Huraira said something. Anas ibn Malik corrected him. Abu Huraira said, that is correct. So you see, our status today is arrogance, self-esteeming, but not anything else. Because there is no difference of opinion. There is no difference. What is in Islam is the mercy of Allah, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, wasi'a, mawsu'un, mutawassi'un. You have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, practice the Sunnah according to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, according to circumstances. And because of the ignorance of our scholars, they don't know that Umar ibn Khattab, when he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, listen to me, today the source, the umbilicus, the notochord of a right opinion has vanished. It has ended. Opinion as a rahama is no longer a rahama, but a punishment. Because the author or the one with opinion is no longer existing, which means no more revelation. Even Umar ibn Khattab was so down, despite his position, that he cannot actually say something for Allah to support him. But look at us today. We are just doing nothing other than running away from the reality that there is no Ikhtilāf. The fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, or Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, saying that Ikhtilāf is rahmah. Well, there were 120,000 Ṣaḥābas. And definitely, not all of them. In fact, to put that number is again something that we should reject. The Ṣaḥābas are divided into how many categories? Badariya, and then Shajara, and then Ansar. So if there is any dispute, that division was applied. Like the question of plague. The Ansar could not give satisfactory answer to Umar ibn Khattab. So he called the Muhajiruns. Come tell me about this. What are we going to do? And there were people who gave the verdict. And he accepted it. One can remember, the other cannot remember. So my brothers, accept it, reject it. There is no Ikhtilāf in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As I said, it is better we distinguish between farraqa, tafarraqu, tanaza'atu, and takhtalifu, Ikhtilāf. I think I better stop here and advise you to be extremely careful in the manner Arabs present themselves, because it's not easy to understand Kalam Arab. You can easily be deceived, confused. But if you stick to the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it is action, not rhetorics. Assalamu alaikum.